Boom. What's going on, everybody? How you guys doing? Thank you for joining me this Tuesday. We're talking Silver Age. We're talking Bronze Age. We got a special guest joining us today. So yeah, I'll I got no announcements, no nothing. So let's bring in our panel, our musketeers, guys. We'll get everything ready. We'll wait for people to hop in on the chat. And yeah, like I said, special guest, a lot of knowledge. And yeah, we're going to kick it off. So first up, 3-time champ. You guys already know he is Mr. Red Pill, Mr. Blue Pill. It is Hyper Combo.
What's up, newbie and chat? Yeah, man, looking forward to tonight. I'm looking forward to it especially because I don't have to do that much talking tonight. Dan's going to be pretty much taking the floor, so I'm looking forward to that.
Hype, it's a special guest. You're not supposed to say who it is yet.
Oh, oops. Whoops.
Well, looks like Hyper's going to be looking for a new YouTube channel.
Well, we never said which Dan, though. It could be, I don't know.
That's true. All right, let's bring in our third musketeer. It is the legend. He goes faceless. It is Mr. FaceTime.
Man, leave it to Hyper to screw that one up, right?
I am sorry.
And be late.
Hey, wait, I'm not here. And you can blame my camera.
You know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So yeah, so guys, we got a special guest tonight. Experienced collector. Once those collectors talk, I always like to listen. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I hopefully don't talk too much. I want to leave it all up to our special guest because he's going to have some information on Silver Age, Bronze Age, what to collect, the bubble, the crash, all of that. And then at the end, we've got some books that we're going to take a look at. He might also give you some tips on some books to pick up. So yeah, we'll see where the conversation goes, and we'll go from there.
Who could our guest be?
Yeah. So with that said, let's bring in our special guest. It is none other than Mr. Dan. What's going on, brother?
Gentlemen, thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna talk. Hey, I cannot turn down the possibility of talking silver and bronze. It's kind of, my thing. So yeah, the art's better, all that stuff. So yeah, let's get to it. Hype. I don't know if you want to do a chat roll call there, but
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we got Buckley Jones joining us first in the chat. Welcome, sir. Sherry Heights, thanks for dropping by. Reno's Comics, fellow Canadian, welcome. Kid Collector, haven't seen him in a while, so yeah, welcome back, man. Angel ATMD, hello. Fuchsia Only, seen that name before, welcome. Another Canadian comic dude from Ottawa, what's up? Nowhere Bound. Let's see. Oh, we have our presser, Bleecker Street Comics Super Freak. Johnny Rosado from Dream of August. Then we got Empire Comics, Danime, etc. And last, Star Wars Fiend. And I think that's it so far. And I guess we'll shout out other people as they come in.
Yeah, as they come in, yeah, for sure. Usually it takes a few minutes, right? I mean, we got, TiVo going at the same time and things like that. And I get it. People, there's a lot of content out there. So, yeah, but let's kick it off. Dan, I think the one question everybody wants to know is, who's your favorite character?
Incredible Hulk. When I was a kid in Oakland, I was 10 or 11, and I bought my first comic at the 7-Eleven on my way to school. And I didn't have much money at the time, and comics were 25 cents at the time, and you go into the 7-Eleven and there's that vertical rack where all the comics are stacked up. Mm-hmm. And I bought Hulk 197. It was the first Hulk versus Man-Thing. So I was introduced to that, and there was a character called the Collector, and it was a Len Wein story. Sal Buscema drew it. I still love Sal Buscema's art to this day. He's my favorite artist amongst many. And I didn't know that was the beginnings of my comic collecting back in those early days.
It's interesting you say that because you actually have. I thought your answer was going to be Iron Man, because you have a book that I actually have as my holy grail, which is Tales of Suspense 39.
I don't bring it up. I'll save it.
Okay, all right.
For those of you in the
thought
chat and those of you watching at some point, if you don't know what Tales of Suspense 39 is, please educate yourselves. It's probably the greatest superhero of all time, right? So, and I know the chat's probably going to be like, what? But you guys know I'm the Iron Man guy. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, we're here to talk Silver Age, Bronze Age. No better guest to have than Dan. Dan, you've been collecting how long now?
Many decades. I'm old enough to know I've seen the rise, the fall, and the rise again of the comic collecting industry. The rise when it happened in the 70s and 80s, the fall when they oversaturated the market in the 90s, and then it's rose up again. I mean, look at how many comic commentary shows are popping up because there's such an audience out there. There's a hunger. There's people who want to talk about this. There's an interest. And the biggest spike has been with the movies, mostly the Marvel movies. They've really piqued everyone's interest, and I wanted to make that connection to the Silver Age.
Now, it's interesting, right? Because, like, back in the day, and I don't want to age you, and I don't want to offend any of the older people.
No worries. I happen to be alive. Don't worry about the offense.
But it's interesting that you bring that up because sometimes, and we've had that, happen in our chats where we do, like, investment books or spec books, and people are like, man, why are you tying a show or a movie to why that book is successful? Unfortunately, most of the time, I'd say maybe 7 out of 10. That's probably why, right? We're getting a show, we're getting a movie. What was it that drove certain issues back in the day for you? You know what I mean? Or like the people that you were surrounded with back then. Like what kind of? Because there wasn't that many shows. Well, there wasn't shows, there wasn't movies as there are today, right?
All there was cartoons.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some movies from DC. I mean, the Superman series in the 50s with George Reeves. There were some early Superman, Batman movies. There wasn't much Marvel, if I remember. All the Marvel stuff was animated stuff, and it was just what we kids talked about at the time. We would share and talk about what comic you bought and all that. And of course, I'm old enough where it wasn't cool to be a nerd. If you were a nerd, you were totally outed. So you had to sort of keep it on the down.
Now it's like cool. Now it's hip. Now it's like
that's absolutely. But let's talk about the Silver Age, if we may. Why I want to focus in on it. And by the way, I'm not opposed to new comics. There needs to be new artwork, new storyline, and all that. That's totally fine. But I'd like to do, if we're going to predict where the market's going to go and what we should maybe invest in the future, I think we need to look in our past. And so I'd like to do a quick little timeline before we put everything together and look at the big picture. When comics started in the late 30s with Superman, Batman, Flash, and Green Lantern, DC got off to an incredible start. They just did. They broke the mold. And I try to imagine myself back in the late 30s when this all came to being. They saw this man who could lift his vehicle above his head. He could fly. It must have been mind blowing. DC got off to a great start. Marvel, Atlas, Timely, whatever they were calling at the time, tried to counter with their heroes, the Submariner, the Human Torch, and then their best one was Captain America. Because remember, this is World War II. And it was a time, it was very uncertain, and there was a lot of uncertainty in the country. They needed something to root for, and they found it in the form of these comics. But DC got up to such a great start. They ruled the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and Marvel never really caught up. They were kind of, off in this very, very distant second. But it's worth noting that there was a book that influenced the entire market, and that was that book in 1954. It was The Seduction of the Innocent by Dr. What's his name? Wortham. Wortham was a psychologist, and he was pointing the finger of blame at the troubles of youth at the time in comic books. And Wortham may have meant well, but I think he overdid it and over-sanitized the situation because his book started a conversation that went to a congressional hearing. Mm-hmm. And the comic book market was a very small market. These companies didn't have money to fight what was about to come down upon them, and the industry almost collapsed. And I mention that because I blame that book as to why the stories from DC weren't that great in the 50s and even early 60s. I think they were so afraid of what the government was going to do to them at the time, they kind of kept everything very, very tame. But I know politics, and when there's a pressure and a movement like that, it doesn't last forever. Take you to 1961 when Stan Lee has his famous conversation with his wife Joan about, look, if you're going to get out of the industry, which he was almost fed up with it, she said, look, you got nothing to lose. Do what you're going to do. Do things you the way you want them. He started the Marvel Silver Age with Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Thor, the rest of them. He did it in such a way where it was what later would be called the Marvel method. You come up with a character, you become that character, you live as that character. And he brought those characters down to earth. So instead of just somebody flying and people pointing to Superman saying, oh, wow, it's Superman, he made it in such a way where, let's say, newbie, you become Mr. Fantastic. How would that affect your life with these new abilities, this new power? Hyper, you're the Human Torch. What would you do with these powers? Face, you're the Thing. How does that affect your life?
I'm going to put it in invisible.
I'm creating the Fantastic Four here. I know I'm not the Invisible Woman here.
This is Invisible Woman.
But he brought it down to how would that affect your life, and also the flaws that you have in your personal life would be manifested itself in these characters, and it brought a human element to it.
Yeah.
It's almost like that was the biggest revolution in comics in history, even as big as the beginning of superhero comics in the 30s. It's my recollection of the 60s was that what Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and what would become the Marvel bullpen could almost do no wrong. I mean, not everything was perfect, but it was such a powerful influence regarding stories, characters, villains. They did what was thought impossible at the time. They beat out DC. I mention all this for this reason. Look at where we are today. We hinge on every word from Kevin Feige and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I say they're gaining most of their strength from those years, from the Silver Age. And if we use that as a template, and I think it's a wise way to look at this, we might be able to predict what they're going to do next.
Yeah. I'm going to stop you right there real quickly. I just want to thank everybody who's joined us, who's, we didn't get to shout out. So thank you guys for joining in. Dan's, this is gold right here. I hope you guys have pen and paper and things like that. I do want to give a shout out to Kid Collector. Thanks for that super chat, brother. I don't have a clip of Eva Long or anything like, Matt Forge and them, but brother, appreciate that so much.
I don't think we should be showing
for the record, the Invisible Woman would fuck up the rest of the Fantastic Four. So y'all can go to hell.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've kind of made it a joke in a good way, right? Because you don't want to offend anybody. I like to think I'm pretty social and funny, but I even when Winter Soldier ended, I was like, oh man, Sebastian Stan was wearing a blue shirt and it was sunny. Cyclops is confirmed, just making, because it's just gotten to that point now where, people look at every Easter egg. And I remember watching WandaVision and we were watching it with my girlfriend. My girlfriend was like, hey, you know what? Cause she's not really into it, but she'll watch them and stuff. And I remember watching it thinking, okay, there's going to be so many times I have to pause this and look at the Easter eggs and look at this. And then you stop and you're watching an episode for almost 2 hours and the episode's actually 30 minutes, but you want to get that's where we've become and gone in this community, I find, right? Where we're all trying to get ahead on the spec. We're all trying to mirror the silver and bronze. And it's just interesting because, you guys didn't necessarily have that years ago, because you've been collecting for decades, right? So I have 70s and 80s. I mean, it wasn't like this, right?
Well, I don't try to analyze every single millimeter of anything that the MCU throws out, because there's too many stories to draw from. You can go in several different directions, and you never know what the MCU is going to have throw out next. When they brought out this is, hope you can see it, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, that was
they made that a movie.
That was a
joke. By the way, I paid $3 for this at my LCS years ago. The Guardians of the Galaxy weren't a thing. They were barely a second-rate team.
Yeah. And
when the MCU said, hey, we're going to have a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I thought, why? I don't understand that. But I'm not complaining, because that spawned, these issues. First Rocket Raccoon, which was kind of a goofy issue, by the way. Hulk 271, and all the others that were connected to it. The market just spiked because people are very interested in what they're doing, but you never know what they're going to do next. But I think as we go down through the show, we can maybe come up with some clues and find out what direction they might go into, because I think most of it's Silver Age. They're going to touch into the Bronze Age. Yeah. They may touch current stuff later, but I think I'm assuming the people at the MCU are roughly my age or younger, so they remember what I remember. And now this is an incredibly talented team that can transfer what we read in the comics onto the big screen.
Yeah. Big shout out to Nowhere Bound. Thanks for that super chat, brother. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's interesting. And you know, I bring that up because that was the first time I actually watched the show where I was like pausing it, you know, and I wanted to know the clues because, you know, Hyper and Face, you guys have heard me say this and people in the chat, but it would bug me when, you know, even when trailers came out for movies in the past, right? Like a trailer would come out and then like there'd be videos on YouTube like 700 Easter eggs you missed, right? And I'd just be like, what? How did they get 700? Like the trailer was like 30 seconds long. You know what I mean?
Well, okay. The lesson we should have learned from WandaVision was that there was too much thinking in that. It was overthinking. Yeah. And the biggest disappointment was everyone who bought Silver Surfer 3 waiting for Mephisto to show up. He never did. We were waiting for anyone to show up. It was all speculation because there's such interest in the market now. Again, that was made, what, a year or so ago? This is before all the speculation and the Easter eggs were mentioned. I don't think the MCU was thinking about that. Now, maybe they will moving forward, but I wouldn't expect someone to show up at the end of every single episode, every single show. I mean, there's going to be great content with the Loki show. I think that's going to be next Dynamite series. I'm really looking forward to that. The reason why is Tom Hiddleston, he's become Loki. He has owned that character. Whatever he does turns to gold. So I'm very much anticipating that. But what's going to happen, I don't know.
I think. Sorry. Go ahead, Hype. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you find, because I don't know, I find that sometimes having a bit of comic knowledge almost becomes a bit of a curse when we're watching these trailers, as you say, because it's almost like because like I said, I've watched reaction videos of people that have no comic knowledge, and they seem to have a bit more of, I guess, their joy seems to not translate to the same way as because we tend to overanalyze things. Do you find that's the case with you when you're watching these trailers sometimes?
No, not at all. I don't buy the comics for money. I know there's a certain monetary value, especially now. We'll talk about the bubble or lack of it in a moment here. I buy because I love comics. Yeah. I love the stories. There's a true happiness that I have by collecting, and the money is secondary. It's not that I'm a wealthy man or anything, but I buy because I truly love the hobby. If you're buying for any other reason, that's your business, that's fine. But I think the best collectors are the ones that buy because, again, they appreciate the stories, they appreciate the artwork, and it brings joy to their life because the stories are inspiring. And I think the best person to do that was Stan Lee. If anything that Stan Lee should be remembered for, it's his writing skill. I think he was the best writer in comics today. And he should always be remembered by that. He's remembered mostly for, the costume characters, not his writing ability. He was a fabulous writer.
Yeah, I think it just depends on like what age group, right? Because I mean, you're talking like you have the knowledge. Hopefully one day, Kid Collector, because I see them pop up, like 25, 30 years from now, he has me on his channel. He's like, newbie, what was it like collecting in 2010, 2000, But it's just interesting because, everybody has a difference, right? And I think something that I actually wanted to touch base with you on is this argument that we have now, right? Where you look at today's generation and you ask them, because this is a question that's going to be, I think, at the forefront more so than, is it Hulk 180, Hulk 181? Is it X-Men 266? Is it Uncanny or X-Men Annual? I think the biggest question moving forward is Miles going to be the future? Because when you ask younger generation, like younger children now, and you say, who's Spider-Man? They say Miles. So one of the questions I had when we were talking about this is, do you see that Ultimate Fallout 4 book being or coming close, anything close to Amazing Fantasy 15?
No. But this does dovetail as to why I'm not opposed to new comics or new storyline, because we would never have a Miles Morales if there were no new stories. So I'm delighted that he's here. But I think that character certainly has a very long-term future in Marvel. I think they've done a fabulous job with Miles, and he is going to be the future. I think what they'll do is they'll integrate him with the Peter Parker character. I'm not certain how they'll do it, whether it's going to be some sort of timeline thing or whatever. But to answer that question, it also depends on what you like. There's certain comics I never bought. Like, when I was a kid, again, comics were 25 cents. And if I had a couple of dollars, I only had so much money to buy whatever. I can't imagine being a kid today and comics are $4 a pop.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid, you don't have much money just because of your age. I would have to be very, very selective with what I bought, what I read. And if there's a bubble that might burst, it might be an oversaturation of the new comic market. They should not do what they did in the 1990s because that spells trouble.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my question, because I know that because I was only starting to collect. I only just started back like 3 years ago, so I didn't really collect during the 90s. But you always hear people kind of almost have like that fear mongering thing where they're thinking that where things are headed right now, it's almost like the 90s on repeat. Like we're on the verge of it. So yeah, I was just curious on your take on that.
I see kid collectors asking about the expense. Let's talk about the bubble here. Some have asked, I know Mickey from Swaggle said he did a really good piece on the bubble. I think Jeff from Journos talked about, Chris from Journos talked about this as well. I don't think it's a bubble. I think these prices are here to stay because look at the interest. It's really accelerated because of the movies. People are forking out an awful lot of money. Key issues are doubling, tripling, quadrupling, almost
by the second, by the day. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, when we get into the issues here, I'll give one example here. And I only read about coming on the show. I wish I was on here a couple months ago because I could have maybe been the voice of wisdom and got you guys some really great issues at the ground floor. Now those windows are closing very quickly. You know,
it's interesting. We've talked about this, but you bring up Kid Collector, and even he's saying, it's gotten expensive. And I had an interesting conversation with Jack Bolo a few weeks ago, and we were just talking, and I remember saying to him, like, imagine a new person coming into the community, right? And him basically having a favorite character of, say, Captain America or Iron Man or Thor, whatever the case may be of the characters we've seen, and this person wants to get in. They're never going to be able to hold a first appearance of their favorite character. It's gonna come down to what's next. Like, perfect example, Wolverine. I guarantee you there's not many new people able to afford Hulk 181. The 180 is not the poor man's Hulk or Wolverine anymore. Then you start moving into the solo series and this. Go look at the origin of Wolverine now. It's like it's almost crossing $1,000, where like a month ago it was $150 book.
Let's get into a subject of, there's been over the last few years this over focus on 9.8. Everyone wants perfection. The problem with perfection is it's expensive. And one of the things I did in my collection was I had no problem going with a really pretty 2.0 or a 3.0 of whatever. And you're going to have to be very creative. And if you're running a comic shop or running an online service, one suggestion I would have, because I thought about this, let's say I'm starting today. I'm starting my collection totally from scratch, and I'm on a budget, which I am. I'm very much a collector on a budget. Yeah. Let's say you get something like this. This is going to be one of the issues we're going to bring up here. Fantastic Four number 25. It's a 3.5 CGC, really pretty issue here. You can still find these for a reasonable price. Let's say $250. Okay, that's a pretty good chunk of change.
That is reasonable. Yep, I agree.
But if you get this as your centerpiece of your collection and then get $5 or $10 issues to go around it, no one's going to complain that that's not a great collection to begin. It's a smart way to buy a comic book. It's still gorgeous. It's not a 9.8. It's a 3.5. But you know what? Who cares? Thanks to Slab Comics, these present very well. They last for I don't know how long. But it's this out-of-the-box thinking that we're all going to have to be into or get into as these prices accelerate. They're not going backwards.
I agree. Yeah, I think we're in a time where people either get 9.8 or nothing. I'll be honest, when it comes to new comic book stuff, I prefer it to be 9.8. I mean, if I could afford a Hulk 181 9.8, yeah, great. I wasn't able to, but like I agree with you. Like it doesn't necessarily always have to be a 9.8 or anything like that. Right?
Let me throw this out. I got a Tales to Astonish 87. I don't have the comic in front of me. It was a Gil Kane cover, and it was a 9.6 CGC. and but it was white pages. Now I looked up the CGC census. There were 4 other issues that were 9/8. But one thing CGC doesn't say in their census is, are the pages, what's the condition of the pages? Are they white pages, off-white to white? If all 4 of those 9/8 are off-white to white, I dare say my 9/6 white pages is the best comic in the world. Now, I'm not an expert in paper, but I'm assuming that if the pages are white, there's more moisture content in the paper, it's going to last longer, and it's certainly more attractive. So I think CGC has what do you call it? You pay $5 and you can look at the grader's notes.
Yeah.
Maybe you can find out where, what sort of condition they're in. But again, I've scored a lot of gorgeous books that they're 9/6, 9/4, and I got them for a fraction of the cost of a 9/8.
King of Gold.
No, I'm one of those people. I hate the whole numbering system in general. It's just, man, like it makes it like you were saying, it makes it ridiculous, because you got to go out there, and especially on newer comics, it's 9/8 or nothing, and it just makes it so much more expensive. Whereas I've always been the type of collector where, like, if it's near mint, I'm good with it. So.
Well, that's interesting, Face, that you bring up your collecting, because, and this is not a knock on Face. I mean, man, you buy a lot of books when it comes to new comic book day. And that's kind of the question, Dan, that I was, talking about, that I came up with when we were backstage, just, joking around. What would you say to people? And again, you collect whatever way you want, but like Face, for example, he buys almost 90% of the books that come out, right? Is that what happened back in your time? No. I'm just not in a bad way. I'm just saying, like, is that something
Face was in a warehouse?
And where do you see that?
He's not wrong, though. I mean, I do.
This is a very fair question. Let me give it a fair answer.
Because a lot of people will say, hey, I'm grabbing these because this is going to be the mirror image of, Silver Age or gold, like all that. So, like, it's a fair question to ask, right?
Oh, absolutely. And again, you have someone who, I'm literally a time traveler. I was there back in those days when these things had changed. Always know that history will repeat itself. And I'll give a few examples later on today. When I first started collecting, my first love was DC. I loved Superman, Batman, and the rest, but I knew, even as a kid, I couldn't afford what used to be thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to buy the Action Comics #1 or the Detective 27. I knew that would never happen. So I accepted I'm never going to have it, which is okay, but that didn't stop me from collecting.
Yeah.
I say buy what you want, whatever you like, and whatever you can get your hands on, whatever you can afford. Be realistic about it. Now, one of the mistakes that I made, because I also want to share the mistakes so your audience doesn't make these same mistakes, because it can be very costly. If I had all the comics that I had as a kid all the way through today, I'd be worth many hundreds of thousands of dollars, because that's where the market is gone. Just be realistic about it. Comic Tom has this great example: geek responsibly. Set aside a budget, buy what you can afford. Don't overdo it, because that's a horrible mistake. I've had several times where I've had to sell my AF-15. I've had several Tales of Suspense 39. I've had everything, mostly Marvel, and I sold them at a discount because I didn't budget. And I just made horrible financial choices. Yeah. And now it cost me. This go around, I paced myself. I'm on a budget. I never crossed that budget. That way, that's what's behind me right now stays behind me. Yeah. And I think that's the logical way to go about it. But to answer your question, buy what you like.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds simple, but sometimes you have to get back to the fundamentals of things.
You can get very carried away with this. Yeah, this can be like any collection. You could be very addicted to this stuff because, again, I just love buying these things. It makes me happy, but then I have to pace myself. So wait, are my bills paid? What's my financial status? That sort of thing. And I don't really buy on spec that much. I do. Then again, I don't. I'm at a point now where I'm thinking these prices are so vast. I'm going to probably scale back on my collecting because even I won't be able to afford them.
Do you think we're getting to a point where, we did a segment about the next best thing? Those are probably going to be the best option for a lot of people on a budget, right? Because obviously everybody has different finances, and the word affordable is different to all of us. But you know, like you look at, and let's just use this one because I know it very well, but Tales of Suspense, right? Tales of Suspense 39, we both know is going up. It's a hard book to find. Even Iron Man 1, though, it's going up in price. So like where, you know, it's going to be interesting to see where the books go, because like what is going to be the option for people? Like people aren't going to have an option on certain characters because the next best issue or the next best book is not even close to, like, say, the first appearance or whatever the case may be. Like Iron Man after Tales of Suspense 39 and Iron Man 1 and even the Submariner Iron Man 1, like where do you go, right? And I just use Iron Man because I know it. Right. But it's just interesting to me of like, if these prices keep going the way they go, where do, you know, like if somebody coming in wants to buy because Iron Man's the character, what do they do? Right?
Well, before I answer that, let's bring this out here. We teased Newbie a lot about it, but here it is.
I think Newbie's gonna shut off his cam after this.
Wait, you're not crying, are you? That's not a tear. I'm just wait. Okay. Men are ugly when they cry. I just want to keep on your, you know. When I got this, I had to save up for it. I mean, a lot of saving, and there were so many books I wanted to get. There was this Tales to Astonish 91. It was a 9/8 signed by Stan Lee, and it was one of a kind. There's no other in the world, and I could have got it, but then I would have said no to this.
Yeah.
When I got it, I kept an eye on the market, and I got this on Thanksgiving evening. Not only are the prices accelerating, the availability is going away.
Yeah.
They don't have them anymore. The ones that are for sale right now on eBay are 5 figures plus. So if you have that, great. But moving forward to the next tier, I think what is going to come into play is being smart about buying comics and then trading up. I think that's probably the next thing to do. I mean, look at any market like the housing market. The housing market has exploded for a long time, but then there was a bust in the late 2000s, and it came back again. But people became very creative regarding buying property. They either bought property together as several couples, or they got some sort of share situation. There's all sorts of creative ways if you know how to do it, if you're patient with it. But regarding getting your hands on these major keys, unless you've got that money in your back pocket, and I don't, and no one else really does, you're not going to be able to afford them.
Yeah. As you guys know, I recently in the past month have got myself 2 Grails, right? Giant Size X-Men 1 and Hulk 181. And yeah, I can attest to the fact that in that short period of time, the profit margin and what the books are going for now is just ridiculous. And I bring that up to get my next question of people are scared of this crash that, you know, everybody, it's going to be, you know, a crash is coming. And, you know, I think when people think of crash, they think, oh, if a book's going for $100 now, it'll go for $10 when this crash happens. Any thought, any advice you can give on, say, a possible crash or, you know, similar to what happened in the early 90s?
I've got plenty. And that is that this is justification as to why I buy the way I buy. Look, Chris from Drenos did something on this a couple months ago, and he was saying that, you know, if the market goes down and your comics are worth nothing, you're going to be very upset about it. I'm probably the rare exception. I don't care. I didn't buy it because of money. I bought them because I love them. Now, if you're going to be upset because of a crash, if you're buying this for investment purpose, keep it. Look at these like they are tangible assets because they are.
Yep.
If you buy gold or silver, it could go up tomorrow. It could go down the next day. You're running a risk, and so buy it, and then just, you know, whatever happens, happens. I don't worry about it. I just don't. Now, I've been buying, if you want to look at this like stock, I've been buying since the 70s and 80s. They're all still here. Yes, some go up. Some just don't do anything, like some stocks. Some stocks totally go under. I'm sort of indifferent about what happens. I would say buy it. Don't worry about it. But don't put all your eggs in one basket regarding comic books. If you're going to do any investment, this is just one thing you should do. You should have other investments in mind, not just these.
Type, any questions?
Yeah, actually, wait. Well, since you pointed to your collection, I just have since you've been collecting, you know, a lot longer than I have, I mean, I'm guessing space must be an issue. So do you find yourself, like, I guess, doing a lot of spring cleaning with your collection, or do you find that you tend to keep a lot of your collection? Because I'm sure that does come up, into play, right?
I'm probably going to reveal my messy habits, and my wife will probably confirm that. This was a huge pile of just crap. I mean, everything went in plastic bins, no organization whatsoever. I spent months literally rebagging and reboarding thousands of books, getting the new BCW boxes. I like the short boxes because they're easy to stack, they're lighter, and the BCW plastic boxes. But I'm almost running out of room. What do I do if my collection expands? I don't really know, but it is a problem. Now with you new comic collectors, storage is another factor. You have to have money to store these things properly, whether it's the poly bags or the boxes themselves or the Mylar or whatever. The Mylar is sort of the poor man's slab, but it does protect the book. You also have to, you have to pay for your home and your heating and air conditioning, whatever. You got to be careful not to put them in sunlight. There's all these things you have to worry about because remember, comics are just paper. They're one of the most fragile things we have, and anything can happen to them. But storage is an issue. There's all these issues you have to factor in, but I would factor that in before you start buying, because if you have no place to put them, I probably wouldn't get into the hobby.
Yeah. I see. I've gone to check out collections or bought in books at people's houses before pandemic, and there was people where you walk in and they have like a living room full of boxes, and you're just like, man, you have like a wife and like 3 kids running around, and it's just, where are you putting it? I've also been in like small bedrooms where like from bottom to top it's just full of long boxes, and it could get pricey, it can get crazy. I mean,
well, you see those collections that people buy and it's in someone's barn, and you want to cry because they're just sitting there exposed to the elements. How they survived on any level, I don't know, but I don't go out hunting that much. Well, we couldn't because of the pandemic, but it's fun if you like going to garage sales, that sort of thing. But it's time consuming. It's very time consuming, and not. But
you always find interesting stories, though. You always find those interesting stories from like garage sales, flea markets, barn stories. Just like it. They're kind of cool. I mean, whether they're true or not, most of the time, it depends. But
the stories are true, but so are the same stories that people have won the lottery. It doesn't happen very often. And then how much time and effort you put into this, and then what's the rate of return? I don't see the value in shopping, hunting in the wild unless I had nothing better to do.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Because now well, here's the thing. I actually do prefer hunting. Not so much. I mean, you're right. It is sometimes finding a needle in a haystack. Sometimes when you're trying to find that gem. But I don't know, man. I mean, sometimes it's I almost treat it like a treasure hunt sometimes, like when I'm doing these backbin divings. So, and the thing is, I take a bit of enjoyment out of it. So I guess it really, I guess it depends on the person.
Let me back up. I don't want to knock it because I would do it if I had the time.
Right.
Let me put it that way. If I had the time, and I have stopped at garage sales and found a couple of things. If my life was different and if I didn't have so many things on my plate, yes, I would do it. But in my case, no. I'm buying most of my stuff online, most of it from eBay. I know eBay has all these fees and all that, but they're a reliable source. And with comic collectors, you want reliable sources, and you don't want to have problems. You just want to make the purchase, it's done, and it's over with.
Dan, I want to get your thoughts because somebody, I think it was Ancient. It kind of passed. Hold on, Ancient Mariner. Just brought up the question, well, not the question, but just, the comment of, collectors of today spending big money on like these newer characters. When you see the prices of some of the characters, like say America Chavez and, I mean, I say modern, but like at what point do we stop modern, right? Or it just gets a little crazy. What are your thoughts on that when you see some of these characters getting up there to the same level as, say, the Silver and Bronze Age characters that are like big time?
Part of it's a generational thing. I don't see what you guys see. You guys are 20-something years younger than I am, so you see the world differently than I do. And people that are 20 years younger than you see things differently. So they like when my kids go to Comic Cons, they gravitate towards things I never would have thought of. But something of value to them. They want to put money down on it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But with the Silver Age in particular, and especially the Gold Age, they're getting harder to find. They're disappearing. They're not lasting forever. You know, the modern stuff are, they're brand new, and in theory, if you take care of them, they'll last for many, many decades. I just look at what's available. If something is pretty rare, like there's only so many of the grails out there, and they also won't last forever. Let's say somebody loses one, or there's a terrible catastrophe, like a fire or something. Not that I wish that on anybody, but things are going to happen over time.
Yeah.
And the availability is going to continue to shrink, and the market will continue to grow. But if you want something that's new, if that's something that you're interested in, if the story grabs you, fantastic. There's nothing wrong with it. And as long as there's a market and people willing to pay for these new issues, I don't see any problem with it.
Yeah. 1990 to 2000 should be the foil age.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't.
Foils are
Well, it's just crazy to me how, and we don't have somebody coming out and being like, hey guys, it's the newbie age now, or, just like the changing, you know what I mean? Like I feel like
You're really shooting for that damn newbie age.
you know what I mean? Like, because in 5 years, are we going to still say, oh, it's a modern comic? In 10 years, are we going to say it's modern, or is somebody going to step up and be like, hey, we're in blank age, right? Like, it's just, I don't know.
No, there's going to be a name for whatever the new era is. There's the Generation X and then Generation Y, whatever else there is out there. So as time goes on, that it'll come into its own. All right. But again, my particular thing is I'm staying with Silver and Bronze because I still think the quality of the stories are better. I'm not opposed to new stories, but they have to grab me. And
I'm with you. I prefer the old. One of the big factors for me, Silver and Bronze, is the art. I always talk about, Fantastic Four, like the first 200 issues. You look at, or not the 200. Sorry, you look at the first 100. It's great art. It's you just have that vintage comic. Even when I find some or I buy some that early, right? Like I just love, and I think that's why I love that like 5 to 7.0 range of a book, like especially if I'm going to get it slabbed. I mean, one, it's affordability, but the other, it's like it's got that vintage look to it. You know what I mean?
Well, you just hit on something on my list here. I want to talk about what I believe the Silver Age is. I tried to look up to see. I'm talking about the Marvel Silver Age, and whoever the experts said the Silver Age for Marvel ended in 1969, and the Bronze Age began in 1970. And my question is, why? What was significant about what ended in December 1969, and why did the Bronze Age start January 1st, 1970?
Yeah.
An age or an era has to do with a style, or in sports, a winning streak. There's some flavor to it. The Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Marvel bullpen era, I think, lasted to the 20-cent era. The 20-cent era ended in the early 70s, I think 72 or 73. The artwork was similar. The stories were similar. Even the quality of paper and the ink was different. Once they went 25-cent era, that it was noticeably more modern. The approach was a little more modern. They started to change things after that 25-cent era. That's where I draw the line personally.
Yes.
Because you look at the books that are 20 cents on down, all the way to 12 or 10 cents, they go for a higher premium than the 25-cent counterparts.
Dan, I actually have a question for you, and because you may remember this offhand better than I do. Wasn't it like Crisis on Infinite Earths came out around then? I think that was what they used as like defining the switch over from the Silver to the Bronze, which was Crisis in DC, because they based a lot of that off of DC. I think the switch from Silver to Gold was the Flash. Yeah. Whenever he met his Earth 2 counterpart and everything like that, they used that as the switch over, and I think Crisis was the switch for Silver to Bronze.
I think you're right about that. Although I'm not anywhere near up on the Silver and Bronze Age DC market, and again, it was simply because as a kid I didn't have any money to buy them. I just have to be very
Right.
selective regarding what I bought. But I think you're right about that. And I know the Silver Age definition is different for DC as it is for Marvel. So I'd have to
Yeah.
get back to you on that one. I don't want to give false information without knowing my facts.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's two. There was another big event at Marvel that happened around the same time, I think, too. And they used both of them as like switch over. Can't remember what the Marvel we've met.
I'd like to know
someone
who
in the
makes who makes these determinations. Who's the
Yeah, that's a good
authority
question.
behind what?
That's
you know?
what I'm.
Yeah, I think-
That's what I'm saying is like, you know, you were able to go through some of these changes. So silver, bronze, and I'm not trying to age you, you know, and modern. So like my question is like, hey, did somebody just stand on top of a building and say, hey, comic people, we're going to a new, you know, like that's what I think.
Overstreet did back in the day.
You know,
I think it was
but
Overstreet.
now it would just literally take, I don't know, Diamond, CGC, you know, somebody to just be like, hey guys, by the way, from, you know, May 1st, 2021 on, it is whatever age, right? And I think that that's kind of what we're doing. Overstreet, I'm hearing Overstreet, Vancouver Junkie mentioned it. So
I would think that the logical choice for anyone to make those determinations would be Overstreet because they've been at it for half a century. They're
Right.
well connected to the market. I am still stunned that there's no online presence for Overstreet. There's no, because the market is so volatile. Why they haven't gone into the 21st century, I don't know. But there's a lot of very, very well educated people who know the comic market. I would go to them for that sort of official determination.
yeah, it's yeah, and I get it because, you know, I've seen some comments in the chat, and I always say this, you know, like at some point, you know, those Silver Age books or those Bronze Age books were modern books, right? And yeah, eventually, you know, we're gonna have to have a change because I mean, what are we? 1990, so we're at 20. We're almost at what? 40 years, 30 years
It was funny
Yeah.
because,
Yeah,
in what modern is, right?
right.
and I think on CGC, I think they consider modern anything after 1975, but that's CGC standard of what's considered a modern book.
Yes. That's,
Well, the
That
MCU
probably
is
has to
still
do with,
again, the MCU is still tapping from the Silver Age, and there's a lot of stories that are still there. I mean, think about this. When Disney finally made the final purchase for Marvel Comics, I think it'll go down in history as the greatest purchase in entertainment history. By that purchase, they literally bought over 80 years of storyline. The stories are written for them. The characters are written from them. The costumes are written from them. The dialogue is there. Even the backgrounds are already prepared for them. All it takes is a very talented team to put that on the big screen, which they found in the form of Kevin Feige and the MCU. But history's kind of repeating itself, too, if you look at it a certain way, where DC was the first company to get decent movies. You know, they weren't great. They were okay. I'm talking about the Christopher Reeve Superman in the 70s. And then who was it played Batman? Michael Keaton, who played Batman in 89, was not a good choice, by the way, for Batman. Keaton was
Really?
a comedic actor, but I never bought
wow.
him as Batman. I'm sorry. So,
Wow.
but
actually one of
and
my
the Marvel
favorites.
movies at the time were horrible. I think there was a Fantastic Four movie that totally bombed, and it didn't.
Yep.
The movies didn't really start for Marvel until 2000 when they came up with X-Men from who was it? Was it 20th Century that made that?
yeah.
It was Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart, but it was.
But you couldn't get mad at those. And I say this, and I've gotten, you know, arguments. I say argument, but you know, it's just opinion or whatever. But like at the time, yes, that X-Men was like crazy. Oh my God, because it was like the first in a while, right? But then when you got to like 2007, and you got to like Iron Man and your Hulk and your Thor, you know, and you were able to compare. Those were an afterthought, right? And that
But they could have screwed those up, though.
yeah,
I mean, again, they stayed true to the Silver Age. That X-Men 1 was very close to the X-Men 1 of when did X-Men 1 come out? X-63. And then 2 years later, it was Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. And I like, by the way, you can say what you like about Tobey Maguire. I think he was an outstanding Peter Parker. He was the Peter Parker I remembered. He was a nerdy kid. He was uncertain of himself. He couldn't talk to girls. That's the Peter Parker I remember. This kid that's playing him now, no, he's okay. It doesn't really, it's not really working for me, but it is what it is. But when Marvel really kicked it in gear was the first Iron Man. It was 2008 with Robert Downey Jr. when I remember watching it in the theater and seeing that Mark I armor walk out of that cave in Afghanistan, I thought, this is brilliant. This is an instant classic. I love this. Again, they stayed directly to the Silver Age storyline, and it was successful. Where they start making mistakes is when they get away from that, because the second one was okay. Iron Man 3 was a bomb. It was a disaster for this reason. They had Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin at the very beginning of that movie, and they had me. I thought, wow,
which should have been great.
Yes, it should have been. I was thinking that face. I thought the same thing. They were going to make this last for years. Kingsley was a veteran actor, and they loved to play villains. He was a ruthless badass, everything you would have expected from the Mandarin. And I thought, wow, this is going to be brilliant. And then they did something incredibly stupid. Yeah. They did a switch where he becomes this actor, moron person. I don't know, made no sense. And then some molten men people, one guy, he claims he's the Mandarin. The movie bombed. I hope the MCU learns a lesson from that. Don't stray away from the original storyline, because now we're waiting for the Mandarin in the Shang-Chi movie. Yeah. And if they do, by the way, they're going to have some explaining to do as how and why they screwed up Iron Man 3. I don't know if they'll address it or not, but again, you stay true to what works. What Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did in those early days works, and as long as they stick to it, they'll have success.
Well, Dan, I mean, I don't know if you remember in the sequel to Spider-Man Far From Home, where people were really high on the fact that Molten Man and what was the other character that was a hologram? I forgot.
Hydro Man?
Hydro Man, yeah. They ended up becoming like just mere holograms, like illusions of Mysterio. So that was, I mean, it's not. I don't think it was as bad as a Kingsley Mandarin, but
the gaping hole in that movie was Nick Fury with all his technology couldn't figure out this guy worked for Stark at some point. You know, I'm sorry, there was it didn't really work for me, and it was too campy. It was a campiness to that movie I didn't really care for. I mean, it was a big letdown from Endgame.
You know, the biggest.
I think it means bomb more in terms of reception. Like, people just didn't like it more than it didn't make money. Because obviously it made money, but people just aren't a fan of Iron Man 3. So.
Yeah, and you know, people are under this impression that because I have a movie poster from Iron Man 3, it's like my favorite movie. It is not. I also have said multiple times that it is not the greatest movie. Even
this is the real reason why you're not at your studio, right?
Yeah. Even number 2, I've always said, you know, it is a little. Now, with that said, you know, speaking about like, you know, sticking to the storylines and things like that, do you feel like the future films and things like that are going to follow, you know, set Silver Age or Bronze Age stories or how the characters are brought up?
They could, and they could add their own flair to it. I mean, a great example is Winter Soldier. Falcon and Winter Soldier was outstanding. It really was. It hit on so many different topics. It was out of the box thinking. WandaVision was certainly out of the box thinking. So again, now that you have a talented team that knows what they're doing, the sky's the limit. Now you contrast that with DC and their futile efforts. Look at the Justice League movie. It was 5 characters we all knew and love on the screen with no direction. They rushed the storyline. It simply didn't work. Again, I'm not one of those people rooting against DC. They have so much to offer. They're like, I'm a Chicago Cubs fan. I suffered for decades. In 2016, we finally won it, but it took the right people in the front office to put that team together. The suits at DC need to either get rid of who's making these movies and start over again, or try a whole different approach, because what they're doing isn't working.
Yeah. Quickly, Dan, worst Marvel movie in your opinion? I'll go first. Captain Marvel.
Really?
Why would you steal my thunder?
Oh, that's okay.
Yes. Okay. You know why? Brie Larson. There's many female actresses that could have pulled off that role. It's a difficult role. She wasn't one of them. Yeah. She was too much of herself. Who was it? Samuel L. Jackson wasn't in that movie, that would have bombed, because she never really fit as one of the Marvel characters. And again, being an aficionado from the 60s and 70s, I knew what to look for. And I'm seeing this character she just didn't fit. It was an awful movie.
I actually would have gone with Thor: Dark World.
Yeah, that would.
I'd watch that any day. Compared to Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I've always said Captain Marvel is the only Marvel movie I've only seen one time. Everything else I've seen multiple times.
See, I see that. I say that about Iron Man 3. I saw it once. My daughters always give. I'm an easy gift. They always buy me Marvel stuff, and including the movies whenever they come out. I said, don't waste your money on this one. I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, I think the chat is the same. They're saying Iron Man 3, Captain Marvel. I'm seeing some Incredible Hulk. So
here's a bit of
Mr. Face. What do you say about what's your worst movie?
Oh yeah, I man, it's close between The Dark World and Iron Man 3 for me. Captain Marvel, I'm not a big fan of it, but I am a big fan of Nick Fury and Phil Coulson, so I enjoyed part of the movie enough to be okay with it.
jeez.
I actually have Iron Man 3 on Blu-ray. That's only because I had 1 and 2, so I just needed to complete the set. I mean,
of course I have it.
It's a waste of digital space.
Sam's response is actually very surprising. Age of Ultron.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I didn't like about Ultron was that his mouth was moving. He's supposed to be, and his jaw features are moving. No, just have
that didn't make
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
Age of Ultron. I kind of found like when I watched it in theater, I was more like WTF. But then it was one of those movies I kind of had a better appreciation. I think as I found out how it fits into the MCU, especially with WandaVision and everything, I kind of had a better appreciation for that movie.
Oh my gosh! You know what? I totally forgot about the Dark Phoenix.
But that's not really an
that's
MCU.
not MCU.
No, yeah, I know. I forgot about Dark Phoenix and the Apocalypse one.
Yeah.
Those are
because if you start including outside MCU Marvel movies, like none of the MCU movies make the fucking list.
Agreed. Now, Ghost Rider, I liked the first one. I didn't love it because I didn't care for Nicolas Cage. He's a fine actor, but in a different venue.
Yeah.
They should have chosen Matthew McConaughey, because if you've ever seen True Detective, the HBO miniseries, he plays a very dark character who understands that dark side of the world here. He would be perfect Ghost Rider because he's kind of creepy anyway. He wouldn't have to act, but he would fit the role. But they need to bring the Ghost Rider back. Ghost Rider is one of those characters, we'll talk about it when we bring up the issue here. I think he's one of the most underrated characters in all of Marvel. I think he's far more powerful than the MCU lets on.
What are your thoughts, Dan, on, I think the shows have kind of changed this. And again, it's COVID, right? A lot of us are locked down, some states, some provinces up in Canada and things like that. So, when you talk about prices and things like that, but what is your thoughts on how crazy, let me rephrase this, like the characters go up, you know what I mean? Like it's literally like Ghost Rider. We know, we have some thoughts that it's going to be there. Like basically what happened to Shang-Chi, right? Everybody knew it was coming. The comics, the first appearance especially was still like this. And then the second the trailer drops, it just explodes. Like, what are your thoughts on the fact that like there's some issues out there we know are coming, and the price, you look at the price right now and you have to kind of think, okay, is it a good price to even buy this book at, say, $500 or $1,000, even though it's probably going to go up in price? You know what I mean?
That's a tough question given how volatile the market is. Again, I wish I'd been on this show a couple months ago because we could have got on the ground floor before these books really accelerated. It also depends on the character, and a lot of it's just luck. What the MCU is going to bring up. So it's not something. I can't answer it with a yes or no question or a straight answer because everything's up in the air right now. It's very much in the air. How far it's going to go, I don't know. It will plateau at some point. It's not going to go forever. That much I would guarantee. No market does that. That would be a bubble. But I don't think I can give you a straight answer or a cut and dry answer. It all depends on the character, the comic, and who's making it.
Yeah. Yeah, because me and Hyper, we were talking about, and Hyper had actually brought it up on one of the shows in the last couple of weeks where he said, hey, I think we were doing we were doing Keep Sell Buy, and Hyper had put that book up, and he said, guys, he's coming, just get it. And then I think it was like 2 days later or 3 days later, the trailer dropped, and like, an 8.0 I think went up from like, I think $1,000 to like 2,200. It was just
not even like you could have gotten an 8.0 or like close to like $400 or $500 because I was actually tracking the prices before because I got a copy. And yeah, you're right, it did kind of go up to that amount. So yeah, it's funny how only when people see
it's
it
got to be in
actually.
front of you, right? Even though we know these people are coming, because like next up, like I'm thinking of Eternals. Like we know Eternals is coming; they have a great cast, but Eternals I think is still super undervalued.
Mhm.
It is very much. It depends on what the MCU does. There's a suggestion that they're going to go more cosmic, bringing in characters like Galactus and not the Eternals. Who was it? Oh, the name escapes me. There's all these cosmic, powerful entities that might come in, and the Eternals certainly are connected to that. It's a wait and see game with the MCU right now.
Yeah. Are you liking what you're seeing more from Marvel or DC? Like, especially with the fact that you put in that Zack Snyder cut, right? Like,
I haven't seen the Snyder cut yet.
No?
I haven't seen it yet. I've heard it's good, but then again, it just further evidence that it sounds like they have a very talented person in the form of Snyder, but he's arguing with the suits and the higher ups. There's this, management slash, director argument. So again, they've got to work all these things out. Again, what might happen with DC is if they don't get their act together, the whole system might collapse. Disney, which has deep pockets, may actually buy them because that would be an outstanding purchase. And think of the possibilities with that and the crossovers and all the other possibilities. Which again, we'll wait and see. But again, I'm not rooting against DC, but they don't have their act together.
But Dan, do you find that because we know that sometimes competition breeds creativity? So do you find that? Because I kind of have the fear that you hear people saying that DC is on the verge of getting bought out, and
later
a lot of people are not rooting for Marvel to buy DC because it's almost like it doesn't give them the incentive, I guess, to kind of push the envelope where they don't have that direct number two. So do you find that
No, I agree with you, and that kind of spills over to the CGC argument or conversation I wanted to have here. Right now, we all live and love these. What CGC has done, they have owned this market, no question about it, because of this beautiful presentation. But the problem we're facing as collectors is that I'm old enough to know that it is a mistake to rely on one company and one company alone for your products or services.
Yeah.
Because if something happens to that company, what do you do? I've always rooted if there should be a secondary company that we could fall back on. Right now, it's probably CBCS because they've been at it almost as long, even though their product is still not as good as that third generation slab of CGC. And I know there's been conversation about the prices going up and all that. CGC is going through growing pains. They're incredibly successful, and they are now trying to figure out a way to expand and maintain their success while maintaining their very high standards. I called them. They were in Florida, and I said, "Are you going to have maybe a West Coast, setup or expanse?" And they said, "No, they want to stay right where they're at." But we're kind of at their mercy. Now, back to your question, Hyper. If again, Marvel won't buy DC, it'll be Disney making that purchase, just like they bought Star Wars. So they could have a totally different, format. If they spill over, that will be years or decades down the road. But somebody has to save this company. DC has way too much to offer to let it go down the wayside.
What would concern me with Disney buying out DC is that historically we have seen these bigger companies buy out smaller companies. Malibu got bought out by Marvel, Wildstorm got bought out by DC, and it always happens that at first the companies they tend to absorb these other companies, and they bring the characters in with some big crossover event, and they keep them around. They do big things with them for a month or two, and then it seems like they all fade out of fucking existence. Like the only one that survived the Wildstorm, it seems like, and that's been even just lately with his reappearance, is Grifter over in DC. I mean, you don't see a whole lot of the other Wildstorm characters. Now they're starting to bring them back. Luckily, the Authority, I guess, is coming back and everything like that. But I kind of feel like with Disney and Marvel, like if they bought out DC, you might end up seeing something like that happen. Like, I mean, obviously they'll probably keep around like Batman, Superman, the big ones and everything. But a lot of those secondary DC characters and even third tier DC characters, I think a lot of them get lost in the shuffle if that ends up happening, and that would be disappointing to me.
If I'm at DC and I'm working and I'm trying to turn that company around from the superhero standpoint, I would look back in its history and look to see what worked. The first thing that comes to mind is the animated series from Justice League was outstanding. I love it to
Yeah.
this day. That the voice characters were fantastic. The animation was excellent. Pardon me. The storyline was fantastic. And this is true also with Fantastic Four. We haven't had a Fantastic Four movie in Marvel. And think about that. What a gaping hole that is in the storyline. All the story connected to the Fantastic Four aren't there because there's no movie to support it. So DC should start back on its history and see what did work and start over again. There's lots of options, but again, you need some out-of-the-box thinking and you need some creativity, which they simply don't have.
What are your thoughts on oh, sorry, go ahead, Face.
Saying patience is another thing they don't have. They seem to be rushing everything because they want to make that $1 billion movie, where they're not taking the time to establish, the individual characters and everything like Marvel did, and build up to, those team movies and whatnot that led to the $1 billion movies. Like DC has not went that route at all. They did 2 movies, like solo movies, and then fuck it, here's Justice League.
Well, Marvel's playing this very smart. As you say, they built up to Avengers, the first Avengers from 2008 with Iron Man, and then the other movies that led up to it. And all of them surprised me. Even Captain America, when it first came out, I thought, that's Captain America. I don't know what they're going to do with this character and the storyline. I was totally wrong. And then it led up to Avengers, which was an outstanding movie. DC clearly rushed their Justice League.
Yeah.
And the other thing about wanting to pace yourself, and it's a great entertainment strategy. Because look at what we're doing now. We've got nothing to look forward to, and we're just waiting for the next Marvel movie. That's on purpose. You always keep your audience waiting. You keep them wanting more. That's a winning strategy. Marvel and the MCU are going to continue to do that. DC should take note.
Yeah, Dan, I could attest.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, we actually mentioned this on Sunday's show, where originally, Black Widow was supposed to come out second week of May, but then it got pushed to July. So now we're basically, as of last Friday until June 11th, we have nothing. And I was saying to, the chat and to these guys, I said, from a speculator standpoint, from an investment standpoint, it's going to be a little crazy these next weeks, because we're going to get back into that. Oh man, I just saw Robert Downey Jr. wearing a Gambit shirt. So Gambit's confirmed. He's in the next, it's just gonna get down to shit like that. Which is fine. But when you don't have any proof, I can only imagine that there's people where these actors live that they basically, oh my God, Chris Evans wore a Cyclops shirt. Cyclops is in the next movie, just shit like that. So yeah, it's
Look, I rebuilt my collection 7 years ago with the strategy of staying on a budget, but the 2 best elements were patience and diligence. I was patient, and I kept looking, and when the opportunity presented itself, then I grabbed it. The same should be said with whatever Marvel or even DC puts out. Don't be in any hurry. Salivate and anticipate rather. And look back at the other movies. It's a good time to read comics. A good time to look back at WandaVision, because there's probably a bunch of things you missed. Yeah. If you haven't watched it more than once, which I plan to do. I think that's the best way to employ it. Don't be in such a hurry for the next big thing. Let them do what they do best. They're on a great track and a good pace. Let's not push them.
Yeah, Dan, I was actually gonna support your point. How when WandaVision came out, I was a lot more receptive to that show than I normally would be, because of the fact there was like a longer gap between the last. I can't even remember what was the last MCU. Was it Far From Home? I think that came out before WandaVision.
And then basically, but they came out and said there was going to be a 2-year gap anyway. But then COVID happened anyway, so
exactly, so it stretched that gap even longer. So when it came out, I was a lot more open to that show than I normally would be, I guess.
Well, again, I think we'll be rewarded when the Loki show shows up. I think.
So many possibilities.
Such a character, right? I know he's going to touch on so many different issues, and he is just. I don't know how. One of the gifts of Feige and company, they find the right characters. They find the right actors. With in large measure, Brie Larson, not one of them, but most of them. I mean, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth. I'm drawing a blank on all the rest of them.
Robert Downey Jr.
Downer, I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better Iron Man. Come on, these characters are just fantastic.
I was like, when is he going to say it? I think that. Do you think that has? Because from the speculator point and where I think that they're going to do, say, such characters like Riri, I think that they're going to have that AI Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. I don't know if it's confirmed, but there have been reports, in the past year and a half that he'll still have a role, just like Chris Evans. They'll still have roles. But I think it's just going to be interesting to see that because of how legendary the actors and actresses were for these roles, I think it's going to be a very long time before someone takes those mantles on again, right? Because like you said, nothing's forever. So there's probably going to be a point in time where Marvel's like, hey, we're not really doing movies, or we're going a completely different direction. And then 50 years from now, they reboot Iron Man, or they, just something like that. No?
There's going to have to be a transitional period as these actors age themselves out. They're still young enough to be on the big screen, and we can still accept them. I hope they don't go anywhere anytime soon. And I'll tell for this reason. The older the actor usually brings more quality, more presence, and more confidence in their role. When the mistake, for example, with the Fantastic Four movies, especially the second one, there's this push in Hollywood to appeal to the younger crowd. So they have younger actors playing roles they shouldn't. Like Reed Richards is a very stoic character. He's got, the great temples. He's at least in his late 40s, early 50s, very stoic. And they had a child play him. I forget the actor's name. It simply didn't work. There's nothing wrong, and there should be maturity with some of these characters, because that's how they were in, again, Silver Age. They weren't children running around. These were adults dealing with the situations of the day.
What are you looking forward to most? Not from the comic standpoint, but just from all the shows and the movies that have been announced. What are you looking forward to most?
I'm already seeing it. They're out of the box thinking. WandaVision was a great example, because who would have thought about using a TV series to integrate these characters we know and love with Wanda and the Vision. And by the way, you notice that when they launched the first 2 episodes, because after the first one, I'm thinking, it's kind of weird. I don't get what's really going on. By episode 2, you figured out what was happening here.
Dan, have you ever seen me talk about the first 2 episodes of that show?
Oh, God.
Like I said, my girlfriend, she supports and she'll watch, right? Because she wants me to be happy. So she's like, hey, let's watch it. So I was pumped to watch it. And I remember watching those 2 episodes at the edge of my seat, like them finishing and me being like, what the fuck was that? And her response was like, what was that it? Like, what was that? And yeah, it's just.
We pretty much had to talk newbie off a ledge after the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, it was.
No, don't end it all. There's more to live for. Trust me. But seriously, to answer your question, there is more to live for. We've got a great team. Just let them do what they're doing here. And so I don't know what to expect. I just know that winning team when you see it. So and as long as they're here, the comic market will stay healthy. Because let's say there was no MCU. We wouldn't be talking about price spikes. They are directly tied to the comic market.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I feel like it's unfair, because like I said, we've had some people, message us or make comments in the chat where they're like, can you guys talk about a book without relating it to a movie and the spike? But it's kind of hard unless it's like a main character, and even that, like most of the main characters are on like in a show or in a movie, so it's very difficult, and it's kind of interesting when you get people who say that, but like that's kind of where we are with
let's get into the comics. So that to answer that question, the comics we talked about that we're going to profile. Excuse me. I think that's a good way to illustrate possibilities of what the MCU might be up to.
Here, I'll bring it up. So Dan's got 7 books here. I think it's 6 or 7 books that he really wants to talk about here. So yeah, we'll let Dan talk about it. And again, he's gonna give us some info here. So first book that Dan wants to talk about, we've got Space Odyssey number 8, first appearance of Machine Man. And yeah, Dan, take it away.
Oh, okay.
Why I bring up this issue here, and I got a nice little beautiful 9.6 right here. I got this incredibly cheap.
Damn.
This is a Jack Kirby story, and Machine Man might make it to the MCU. There's no suggestion of it. It's just a wild guess on my part. But I bring this up because as we move forward, if you go like to sites like Go Collect, which is what I use, there's others, and they're all fine. I don't go to the top 50. I go to like the bottom 200 or 300 because they're not on anyone's radar. This comic is not on anyone's radar right now. Now, someone at the MCU may say, hey, I want to start looking through Jack Kirby's stories. This is Jack Kirby creation. It's a Jack Kirby character. And they could expand upon it. Again, I didn't expect that Guardians of the Galaxy would be a movie, but lo and behold, there it was, and all the issues that associated with it. So my first advice to collecting is think about what people are not talking about, and then go from there.
Yeah. And when you brought up Guardians of the Galaxy, I forgot to mention, I know, just really quickly off topic, it was looked on as like hey, what are you guys doing? But then it got super popular, and even when Eternals was announced, it kind of got the same stuff, right? Like people were like, oh, Eternals. I think Eternals is going to have the same success. I think they kind of have like a mirror image of one another. When you talk about like looking back in history and what they do, you kind of almost have to look sometimes at like mirror images of what Marvel's trying to do, right? With past.
It depends on who's doing it, though. It depends on who's putting the whole thing together. Most people know that I'm a huge Defenders fan. I love the Defenders.
Yeah,
they are. Let's talk about them for a second. That was the most powerful team in all of Marvel. Doctor Strange, the Incredible Hulk, the Silver Surfer, Herald of Galactus, Submariner, Valkyrie from Asgard, and Nighthawk for comedic effect. But on paper, they are far more powerful than anything. More powerful than the Avengers. They should have been as popular as the Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and all the rest of them. What happened to them? They faced something they couldn't overcome: bad writing. The first 20 issues were dynamite. Especially the first 11. Fantastic Silver Age type stuff, very colorful, great storyline. And then the writers that took them over from that point didn't really take them seriously, and they went to the wayside. And what a terrible waste that was. So again, it depends on who's putting all this together. So that's why I'm saying let's not push what Marvel's doing. Again, if I'm an enterprising person working for the Marvel Studios, I'd look at some of Jack Kirby's work. This also spills over to DC, by the way, because Kirby worked for DC, I think, in the 70s, and he did New Gods, and there's all sorts of other stories that you could tap into. That's a logistic thing. I'm certain DC has the rights to some of those stories, but it's worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
There, newbie, real quick. There was a question in chat about the release date. No, that's not correct. There, it came out in the 70s, I believe. Has to do with the title. It was tied to a movie.
Yeah, it's a type. I even said, it's a typo on.
Just to clarify that for somebody that was asking in chat.
Now, I see. Hold on. You got $5,000 that someone paid for this as their top sale?
Yeah, I don't think that's accurate. This is the one. So these first two are the ones that you kind of gave me last minute. Remember, I said
right.
So I just
okay.
Put it. The other ones are more accurate, but that's the highest one that I could find for this one.
All right. And by the way, when you go to Go Collect, you look at their fair market value on some of these books. Even the Tales of Suspense 39, it's not accurate because of the volatility of the market. They say my 2.0 is worth $3,850 or $4,000. That's not true. If I put that on eBay today, I could fetch as upwards of $7,500, $8,000.
Yeah.
It's that hot right now.
Yeah. Hyperface. Do you guys have this book by any chance?
No. To Dan's point, it's an under the radar book. So yeah.
And there's lots of under radar books.
Yeah. No, I do not have this one either.
Let's go to the next one, and I'm a little. Wait, no, this isn't the one I'm familiar with. But next book on Dan's list is Thor 384.
This isn't it. This is a pretty high grade copy, but I just found a 9.8 of this. And if you have never read this story, this is a Tom DeFalco story, and I like Tom DeFalco. It's a future Thor. This particular character in the future lifts Thor's hammer. He becomes worthy. This would tie into the future of the MCU because, again, these characters are going to age themselves out. You're going to need new characters, new storyline to replace them. If that I'm banking will be a future storyline from Marvel. I could easily see that happening.
Shoot, I don't have eBay open, so.
I just found a 9.8. I found it for 200, and it's under no one's looking at it.
No, well, not after today. I'm sure, you know.
But I read this story. It was a dynamite story, and again, go with your own knowledge. First of all, read the stories. If you like them, chances are someone else is going to like them, and people at Marvel are going to like them, the MCU, and before you know it, you see it on the big screen.
That's a good point. Yeah. And and this is a late number. Yeah, this is like it's September 1987. So shouldn't be. I mean, I'm guessing, like you said, it's only like 200 for like you said 200 for like a high grade.
Like 9.8.
Yeah. Okay. So.
And I don't buy 9.8s unless I can afford, unless I see a deal somewhere. This is one of my rare spec books, but I remember the story, loved it. I can't go wrong with it. And if it never makes it to the MCU, I don't care. It's on my collection.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I mean, but this is kind of what you want to go. Like, this is kind of what you want to look for. Like, you know, when people who do spec or, you know, look for the investment, it's like, well, what do you look for? Okay, well, number one rule is look where no one's looking. Number two, is it cheap enough? And then you kind of got to go with your gut, right? I mean, would I bank, you know, 50 copies of this? No, but if I came across 5 to 8 copies at a reasonable price, which they are, I would probably grab them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, you're spot on.
Yeah, that's the key, right? I think, you know, we always hear that rule: buy what you like, but at the same time, there should be one for like investors and spec people, where it's like, you know, buy where no one's looking, right?
And it wouldn't surprise me if I actually would be able to find this in a back bin.
You probably could have raw.
I think I've seen this one
under the radar.
Yeah, but I mean, we're locked down until May 20th, so I mean, I can't even go to any shop and look at any of them. So.
Now that we mention it, it'll disappear off eBay tomorrow.
Exactly. All right, let's go into the next book that Dan wanted to talk about. But we've got Fantastic Four number 25, which he showed off. And again, if you guys don't know, this is the first epic fight between Thing and Hulk. Jack Kirby again. Dan, what you had a 2.0 or 2.5? I can't remember.
I have a 3.5 right here, and I paid $2.25 for it, and I've got a raw copy for about the same price, maybe a little bit less. Why this is something you want to keep an eye on is because there's no Fantastic Four movie. So no one's talking about the Thing versus Hulk. I love the Thing versus Hulk battles. And it's right now on no one's radar. But if they finally come up with a successful Fantastic Four, you know those Thing Hulk battles are going to happen. We had a Hulk Thor battle in Avengers 1. I thought that would have spiked some of those issues, and it really didn't. But this is what they call a classic cover. It's a gorgeous copy. Yeah. Very affordable, and this would be a proud part of anyone's collection, and you can get it at a reasonable rate.
I think classic battles and characters joining certain teams sometimes get so overlooked. Like overall, like in general, I feel like those two things always get overlooked.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of things have been overlooked. Again, there's no Fantastic Four movie. What else is missing? Hulk. There's no Hulk movie. I mean, the first 2 Hulk movies were awful. I mean, Ang Lee, I don't think Ang Lee's ever read a comic book. He's the one who directed the first Hulk movie. It was absolutely awful. Second one, The Abomination was exactly that, an abomination. It had nothing to do with the character. And again, it's my favorite character. There's so much to that storyline there. Those are 2 big gaping holes that are missing in Marvel. Whether they're going to come up with an FF movie, Hulk movie isn't really in the works, but they're going to need to because there's a bunch of storyline that goes with it.
Well, Dan, the reason for that is because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the character Hulk is actually tied with the Universal distribution. So the stipulation, I believe, is he's allowed to do ensemble movies like with the Avengers or like if he's featured in a Thor movie. But if he's actually has his own titular title like Hulk, it has to be done through Universal Pictures. That's why you're not really
like. Go ahead, Face.
But no, that actually makes it even better because the Thing and the Hulk is such a classic battle and people remember it so much. The way that they have to use the Hulk character, it almost guarantees that if Fantastic Four is successful for them, at some point they'll bring in the Hulk at least to make a cameo in a movie just to give us that battle.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Kevin Feige's sleeping on that battle.
No.
I would hope.
No, they're planning. Now I didn't know that Hyper that. I thought Disney had made a final purchase. They finally put all the pieces together. I didn't know Hulk was a missing component.
No, that's why even if you look at Universal Studios, you still have like the Hulk solo ride and all that. It's he's still very much like he's one of the last pieces that still remains of Universal Studios in terms of the comic book characters in Marvel.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, they're holding on to that shit for dear life.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
I think the one that a lot of people would love to see is obviously Hulk vs. Wolverine. I don't think we're going to get that one, to be honest, though. This one definitely seems like something that we could see. And again, yeah, the second that, because again, I'm a Fantastic Four fan. I love Fantastic Four. But the first, 3 movies, they're not that great. I mean, hopefully they catch something and they do something properly with this. I have no doubt in my mind they will. So again, and I agree with this one 100%.
Well, along the same lines, and again, being patient and diligent and waiting for the right opportunity. And also, well, let me just show you this one. This is Fantastic Four number 12, the first Thing versus Hulk battle. And it's CGC, what they call an apparent 1.5, and it's a restored label. But the thing is, there's tape on it. There's the cover's trim. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I only paid $300 for this. It was a buy it now situation. I've seen these in worse shape go for $1,200. So look for the deals when you can find them. And I think given the volatility of the prices, I think we should all start taking a very good look at the restored and green qualified labels because you can get your hands on them.
So wait, Dan, that one, that Avengers one, what's the significance again? I thought this one was the first battle.
Well, this is just a meeting. They didn't really fight. They threw a couple of punches, but this was the real battle that Kirby had put together.
Okay. Yeah, because what's the other one? Oh, I'm thinking of the Submariner one. Submariner versus Thing, or is it Hulk? I can't remember.
Yes, that's Submariner 8. That's another one we could have brought on the list too. Gorgeous cover. You can find them. They're affordable. And
I've come across a lot of them. I've come across a lot of those.
I buy them. Don't sleep on those.
Yeah. Next book that Dan wants to talk about is, and this one I 100% agree with you. I've talked about this book for a long time. But we got Amazing Spider-Man 194, first appearance of the Black Cat.
We got a raw copy, and I just got my hands on this 8.0.
Wow.
Again, I wish I was on your show about a month ago. Boy, you could still get these. These are accelerating the price very quickly. There's an old adage in entertainment that sex sells. This is a very sexy character. She meant a lot to Peter Parker in the storyline. She was a long-standing character. It's simply a matter of time before she shows up in the MCU.
Dan, I know you watch us, so you might have heard me say this, and Hyper always gets a laugh when I say this. But markability, right? Yep, sex sells, but the markability of, you look at some characters that they could market where, like, you go down an aisle at Walmart and it's basically all that character. I always make the reference to, like, Halloween costumes. I could totally see a lot of people dressing up like this and them having a markability for the character, but I agree. Very underrated book. I think I had this in one of my videos I did last summer, like keys you should be getting right now, because it was a book that was getting so overlooked, and she does have an important factor in Peter's life. And yeah, when she hits, look at what everything's going on with, like, any other book, right? It just gets crazy.
Well, all the slabs are disappearing. All the high-grade slabs are disappearing. You can still get some mid or low-grade. Your best bet is to get the raw copies. There's still lots of raw copies out there. Hopefully you get a good one, get it pressed and cleaned.
And then wait on it for like a year for CG.
And get it slabbed. Yeah, and then just hang on to it. But there's still some money in this particular issue.
Yeah. Do you think we're seeing her in what is it?
The next movie? I'm going to say yes. There's going to be a reference. Just wild guess. But again, how many stories was she in? I mean, she was all over the place in the Spider-Man storyline. If they don't do it this go around, it'll be the next one. But my guess would be this next movie. There'll at least be some reference to her.
Yeah. Face, I believe you have a copy of this book, do you not?
Yes,
Yeah.
that one I have.
Is it graded or is it raw? I can't remember.
That one's raw.
Raw. Yeah.
Hey, don't sell it. Just hang on to it.
Yeah.
Don't
Hype,
do
you don't
anything
have
with
this one, right?
No, no. This was actually one of those like over the summer. I kind of had to make a decision on certain girls I was gonna. So I ended up passing over this to get Tomb of Dracula 10. So this was actually on one of my like affordable books at the time, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I would want to. I just want to throw out a number. Maybe somebody in the chat. I mean, you know, I know Sam's in here, so maybe he can get it. But like, really quickly, even where this book is right now, say at an 8.0, if you could get it for like $500-600, I probably would still take a gamble at that.
Sam's looking it up right now. Sam, you're the best reporter in the business. Don't ever go away.
Like, I would still be a player at that point, just knowing like where issues go and like how things work in the market, right? Like, because if you're buying it at $500-600, even if it's just for an investment purpose, I mean, you're probably going to double your money.
Yeah. If this character just come out like I think it is, let's say you get an 8.5 or a 9, and you're probably going to pay at this point $700 for more. Yeah. There's still room for that to grow. It'll top the 1,000 mark. Again, it depends on how good the actress is that they bring on and how they portray her. But if it's a dynamite actress, oh yeah, this thing will move.
I want to just like troll and say Jennifer Lawrence, but I don't want to do that.
I'm not going to speculate.
Come on, don't do that.
How many Marvel characters is she going to be tied to at this point?
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Right.
Next book that Dan wants to talk about is this one. I can tell you guys right now. He was telling me about it a long time ago. Same with Vancouver Comic Junkie. They were two people that were constantly talking about this book, and I thought, but yeah, Thor Annual #1, first appearance of Hercules. That record might have been broken already because this presentation, Dan and I and us, we've been talking about collaborating on a show and doing this for a while. So some of the numbers, you guys know how it is. Day to day, overnight, prices changed, and this one was done before the craziness. So I'm assuming that price is higher. But yeah, now with all the rumors from Russell Crowe playing Zeus, everybody's saying, hey, you know, Hercules is coming. So
this one kills me. And Face, you had texted me on, I think, last Friday telling me that Russell Crowe had leaked out that he is going to play that character. And as soon as you told me, I looked on eBay. These used to be plentiful. I mean, I got this one. It's a raw copy, maybe a 3.0. The spine is, you want to be careful with those square-bound books. The spine is very much intact. A little bit of issue at the bottom here. $200. This has already tripled in value.
Yeah.
This is another restored label. It's a white pages 4.5. It's a pretty one. And the restoration on this one, it says minor color touch-up. Now, I work with colors all day in my job. I can't find where they did the color touch-up. But as I understand it, I can get this restored if the numbers justify it, and I think it will. And I finally got this one just under the wire. This is a 5.5 white pages. I got it for $500. This has already nearly quadrupled in price.
Yeah.
Off eBay, there were a bunch of these things, and if I was on your show a month ago, I could have looked like a genius, but now they're almost all gone. There was an 8.5 that some lucky soul got for $1,700, and that's doubled. And there was this absolutely gorgeous 9.0 pedigree CGC. Somebody wanted at first $3,400 or best offer, then they booted it up to $4,000 or best offer. Now it's totally removed it. They're not selling it. That's what I would do. If I had the money, I would have bought that in a second. That is a $15,000 to $20,000 book waiting to be moved.
I think this one has a dip, though. I think this one has a not big dip, but I think this one will have a dip just because of the fact that, well, I don't know if he's gonna like. Would you take a gamble and say that he'll be in that Thor movie or at the end, right? Like, if he's got a big role in it, I could see it. I could just see it having a cameo or something, like, you know, some end credit scene. I don't think that they'd bring in Hercules like right away kind of thing. So
all right, this is where my age comes in my experience, because I was actually expecting him to be mentioned in the Loki show, you know, because it's Asgard, Olympus. That opens that whole thing. And again, Zeus, I've always thought with the powerhouses of the Marvel, you've got Odin, you've got Galactus, you've got Zeus, and there are several others. Why I was looking at this particular character, I consider this to be the absolute last affordable grail. This will be a grail character that you can still get your hands on. And there's still money to be made in this one. But think about, since he was introduced in 1965, how many comics has he been in? Hundreds, thousands of stories. He's a main character that Marvel has yet to tap into. He was the perfect friendly, not antagonist, a friendly rival to Thor. And if you get if sex sells, you get the Adonis type character. You find that person like DC did with Jason Momoa. Yeah, women swoon over him. Good looking man, very powerful. If they find someone like that, he's a perfect fit for the MCU. But to answer your question, if and when they finally bring him on, and I know they will, he's going to be around for a long time.
Yeah, and I think you've heard me say, when I went to go see Aquaman, the big group of women that went to go see it, I know my mom and her girlfriends all went to see it, and they don't know anything about comics, right? They just went because why? Because Jason Momoa was shirtless for whatever, I don't know, half hour or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it works both ways. So yeah.
I have two daughters. They're both in their 20s. I had to keep pushing them away. When he's I think he was at one of the Comic Cons. So I'm having to stop them as the censor dad that I am. But yeah, I mean, if you get the right character, that's a dynamite character. It's just a matter of time before he makes his appearance.
Yeah, I mean, I think Newbie almost passed out in the theater when he came on screen.
No, not even close, man. Not even close.
I'm not touching that one. I ain't touching that one.
All right, let's get into some big hitters. And Dan, you are preaching about this one. Journey into the Mystery, number 85. Of course, Loki being the next one. Again, that record price could have been broken big time. This one is only going to go up. But after the Loki series, where and for how long, it's going to be interesting to see. But again, we got one of those original characters that we in the last 15 years have kind of grown up with, right? It's Loki.
Again, this is one of my regrets not being on the show months ago, but to my credit, I did text in the chat, whenever this is one of the ones I said, get your hands on this while you can. I said the same thing about the Journey into Mystery annual. The one I got here, I got from a store in Canada. The gentleman was selling it for about $1,500. You can't find these. This is a 4.0 white pages CBCS, gorgeous copy. And it's quadrupled in price. It's another grail. They're if you can get one, you're going to pay 4 times what I paid. There's still money in this. There's definitely still money in it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Not as much, but they're disappearing. Not many people are selling these. Just like the Journey into Mystery annuals, they're all disappearing, and no one's putting them on the market.
Man, I know I don't have that one in my collection. Hype and Face. I think you guys don't have that one, correct?
No,
sir. I definitely do not have that one.
I could see this one having a dip right after the show, though. Well,
I don't.
As I say
because
that,
of the actor.
Yeah, there's probably going to be a season 2. Let's face it. How many times has Loki been killed or whatever? So, yeah.
Well, the reason why I say this has long-standing power is because the power of that particular actor. Tom Hiddleston has owned this character. He's an absolute gem, and Marvel knows it. And as long as they keep putting him, he's going to be one of those recurring characters that he makes money no matter what he does. And this is going to be like Hercules, a long-standing character. Think about the villains in the Marvel. The top villain is Doctor Doom. We still don't have a Doctor Doom because of the Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah.
Doctor Doom was in, thousands of stories? Yep. Loki is a close second. He was been in so many episodes, so many stories, so many connections. So he's not going anywhere. Hercules is the same way. Again, look at your history in Silver and Bronze Age. How many of these characters showed up? How popular were they? What impact did they have on the Marvel Universe? And then make your determination moving forward from what the MCU is going to do with them.
Yeah. I'm with Swaggle here. Loki and Doom are 2 villains that can command superhero grail prices.
Swaggle Haas knows what he's talking about. He usually does.
Sam is saying, just to give you some clarity, a CBCS 4.5, just like the one you have, is selling currently for $7,700.
That a boy, Sam. I'm proud of you.
Like,
Yeah, again, it's you got to get the volatility is so quick because I got these only a few months ago, and I got them for a fourth the price of what they're going for now. I still say there's if you use your imagination, there's still some and your research. There's still some books to be had.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now that's the only way I'm seeing this book is through my imagination.
you can view it
Well,
on
look,
eBay free all day long.
Oh man.
Well, look, I'll never get a Journey into Mystery 83. It's out of my price range. It's one of those things I have to accept. It's not going to be in my collection. Look, I'm happy to have what I have. I'm very lucky to have what I have. But there's certain things I have to be realistic about. That's one of them.
Next book. I think we're getting into the heavy ones here.
This isn't heavy? Oh my
well,
gosh.
I know it's heavy. It's just when you look at like.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, this is one that Dan was talking about earlier, but we got Marvel Spotlight 5, obviously first appearance of Ghost Rider. This thing is just going to continue to go up, and this is one again that's not really in your face. This is probably the best time to buy it.
If even though I don't have my Amazing Fantasy 15 anymore, I think my collection today is far smarter than it was before. I got this early last year. I got it for $280. That was it. It's probably a 3.5, maybe a 4. It's not a bad book at all. This has quadrupled in value. Now, this is another character that I think is underrated as far as its power. I think Ghost Rider's far underrated. There's more that he could actually do. And also if they find the right actor for this, not Nicolas Cage. If they find someone else, as I suggested, Matthew McConaughey, there's probably a few others. If the MCU goes in several different directions, one cosmic, 2 horror, this would be a main character to go with that. With Dracula and a few others, there's going to be a lot of that. But he would be a main character in that realm. But again, it depends on how they pull this off.
I'm big on thinking they're going to do these realms like fantasy, right? With like, and laugh, but like with Excalibur and like, Black Knight. I also think that they're going to be really big and very successful with the horror stuff, right? So this fits right into that wheelhouse. 100%.
And you weren't wrong on your suspicion. It would be on your Sunday show. You had brought up Speedballs, one of your Spec issues.
Yeah.
I have that. Now think about that. That was a Steve Ditko creation. Steve Ditko and Tom DeFalco created that. Now it's not the most glamorous character, but then again, we never thought Guardians of the Galaxy would be a thing like it is now. Exactly. And that character might appeal to someone youthful. And again, the MCU team should start looking at Roy Thomas's stories, Steve Ditko stories, Jack Kirby stories, and certainly Stan Lee stories. There's all those stories from Strange Tales with Nick Fury and all that, and Doctor Strange that they need to tap into. So there's a ton of resources back from the Silver Age that the Marvel can make a ton of money off of and bring us a lot of entertainment.
I really have a lot of high hopes on that book, and I get it. I mean, people will laugh and say no when they're not comfortable with something, and I get it. It's just human nature. But I mean, at some point, there's been a lot of books that were, like, come on, really? And then they hit, right? So that's the whole point of speccing and investing. So.
And Dan, I'm kind of with you. I feel like I'm in the minority when I actually did like the Nicolas Cage movie, but more for a guilty pleasure reason. It's just one of those movies that, you could kind of watch on a rainy Sunday kind of thing.
I like the movie. I love the character, love the animation, and the special effects rather.
Mm-hmm.
And the story was okay. It was along the lines of this particular of the first Ghost Rider. I just didn't care for Nicolas Cage himself. He didn't fit the role.
Yeah.
What do you think of the black heart that they used?
Yeah,
it was.
Well, it was Columbia Pictures that put that together. There's a big quality difference between Columbia and Paramount. Paramount is just a dynamite powerhouse, and they have their act together.
I think that was the biggest disappointment with that movie for me. Like, even more so than Nick Cage, which was pretty big.
Nobody's mentioned Eva Mendes yet. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, she was pretty hot. She was pretty hot in that movie, no question about it.
And that's pretty much where the conversation ends.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't supposed to be like a good part of that movie or anything. She was just kind of supposed to be there, I think. But
Right.
the fucking villains in that movie were so bad.
They were,
Like,
with one
Fisto-
exception. With one exception, Peter Fonda. He
but
he played the devil himself.
Yeah, but the
Again,
problem was he wasn't really the villain, and he
no,
should
but
have
he
been.
was the main
He would have been better.
antagonist. And again, he was an older veteran actor. And again,
Yeah.
veteran actors love to play villains. He was an exception to that movie.
Yeah, but
I
yeah,
did like.
Blackheart disastrous.
Someone in the chat mentioned this. I did like Sam Elliott as the original Ghost Rider in that movie when he was working in the grave.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I
that
love
was
Sam
very
Elliott.
cool.
Anything.
And it was a nice tie into the first, Ghost Rider 1 when he's on a horse, and that was I
Yeah.
don't know. I haven't read that, by the way. I was bidding on it. I lost the bid, so I've never read that book. But I'm assuming there's some connection to this particular Ghost Rider.
It's going to be interesting, man. I mean, again, it's not in your face, right? I mean, rumors can be rumors, but like this one is not in your face. So, no pun intended, face. But it's not in your face. So like, it's a good time to get here. But I'm seeing some of the comments like Ancient Mariner saying, yeah, you just got to be patient. You would be surprised at the deals that you could make and things like that. And again, if you're in an area where you're locked down, I think it's easy just to have eBay or IG, but just wait, be patient until things open up and things like that, because that's another avenue, right? At shows, at cons, and things like that. So,
Yep.
all right, another book that Dan wants to talk about. This one, now we're getting, I believe, into big. But we got Hulk 180. It is no longer the poor man's Wolverine. I don't care who you are, what issue you have, if it's 181, 180. It's not the poor man's Wolverine anymore.
No, not at all. And I've been saying this for months on your show and other shows that when I got this I got about 5 or 6 years ago. And at the time I was really tight on a budget, and I got this one for about $225. I couldn't afford the 181. I probably should have saved up for that 181, but it's too late now. That's out of my realm. This is probably a nice mid-grade that needs a pressing and cleaning. And now this is well over $1,000, $1,200 for this condition here. Okay, let me get on my soapbox for this one here, because the cameo thing has been a controversy. I want to weigh in. As you can tell, I'm not a word scholar. All right, but people that are word scholars are people like Merriam-Webster. And I looked up the word cameo. Cameo is a theatrical word in its origin. It means that it is a guest or a brief appearance by a known character that is known to the world already and makes just a short visit and then it moves on. The example I use is, have you ever seen the movie Zoolander?
Yeah.
Oh shoot, who was it? The musician who was there. His name escapes me all of a sudden. I should have
David
wrote it down. What's
David
that?
Bowie?
David Bowie.
David Bowie, thank you. David Bowie made a cameo in that. Everyone knew who David Bowie was, all right? He made a quick cameo, quick appearance, and then there was a second Zoolander film that he never showed up in. That is the proper definition of cameo. Wolverine was never, ever seen before, ever, in those last two panels in the back of this book here. The word cameo is improper. It's a brief appearance, yes, not a cameo. Even Marvel, I had the issue here, they did a Marvel Universe. They still refer to Wolverine's first appearance as that right there. Brief appearance is the right way to say this. Now, I think it was some magazine that started this whole thing. CGC got into it. It may be a minor thing to your audience here, but it's a little pet peeve with me, because I think in large measure, and again, as an older person here, I see a largely uneducated youth. And little things like this bother me because they don't understand the meaning of words. They don't understand the definition of things. And again, it's not going to change anyone's opinion about the book itself. So that was my little soapbox. I'll come off of that now and talk about the issue itself. This again there's still money in this. There's absolutely money in this, even though it's quadrupled since I got it. When the X-Men finally gets going here, your 181 newbie, don't ever lose that one. That's gonna that'll continue to move, because that's going to be still the main issue. But that one there's still a lot of money, because that will be considered the first issue, and it'll start to disappear.
Yeah,
it'll be scarce after a while.
Yeah, the only issue is I'm kind of scared because that one is at CGC, and I probably won't be getting it back. Like I shipped it to CGC. I sent it rather in February, I think, at some point. So I probably won't get that book probably by this year. But yeah.
I got a.
Hell no, they're gonna hold it hostage.
I'm sorry, Face. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said no, they're gonna hold it hostage on him until he pays that price increase.
Oh wow, yeah, that's true.
I have never sent anything to CGC. I'm still afraid to do so because I've got so much invested in this. I'm overly cautious with my comics, and shipping this and several others to Florida and hoping it gets there and hoping they grade it correctly. It's nerve wracking. I haven't done it yet. Oh, by the way, this does have the stamp. I made certain the stamp was in.
Yeah, that's important.
What a dumb idea to put the stupid stamp in the comic so someone would cut it out. That was not. It wasn't the brightest thought for Marvel at the time.
I think it's crazy because you talk to anybody, say in like January, February, and people were still laughing at you for like picking this book up. I remember telling people like, hey, and these guys know it. I told them, grab 180 while you can, and even though it had like a $700-800 price tag on it, you see the rewards now where it's almost at $2,000. So
when you're a collector on a budget, though, I didn't care. I could say, hey, I've got Wolverine's first appearance, and I didn't pay much for it, so I didn't care.
Sticking with the big books, big hitters, but Dan, you brought this up. I did not bring this one up. Let everybody know that you wanted to talk about this book.
Of course.
They're going to think I wanted it.
All right. You have a box of tissues near you.
Oh, God.
Okay. Breathe. My 2.0, I got this on Thanksgiving night, and I got a real deal on it. Again, this is beyond my price range now, even though this is a deep grail, no question about it. The value has not moved as much on this one as some of the others we just profiled. I have no plans to ever sell this. I'll never get rid of it because I can never afford one again. So it's not just the price, but the availability. And that's why you don't see these. Like when I watch your show religiously, I watch Comic Tom in his top 10. You don't see that issue on there because no one's selling them, and hence no one's buying them. So it wouldn't show up on his radar.
I want the show's thumbnail to just be Dan holding that slab.
Right?
I have to strike a good pose then. I don't photograph well, but
yeah, like you said, I actually looked it up before we went on show, right? Because I remember posting about this book back in October, and a 3.0 was selling for 7,700 Canadian. And now you look at what a 3.0 could go for. I mean, it's crazy, and they're getting, they're becoming, like you said, they're just disappearing. People are holding on to them. You won't see them as much.
Well, it's again patience and diligence. I showed you this before we started the show in our pre-show that this was a buy it now situation here. This is Avengers 4, a book I also never thought I could get my hands on. Yeah. And the guy wanted $650 for it, and I posted it on my Instagram. I almost didn't buy it. I thought no one's selling it for this cheap. There's something wrong with it. Maybe it's a copy or one of those record reprints. No, it's an actual Avengers 4 signed by Stan Lee. But I had to take a leap of faith and spend $650 on it, which is a lot if you're on a budget.
Yeah.
But again, that wouldn't have lasted but an hour on eBay if you post it for that much. So again, if you're patient, you might just find the right person. Who I got my Tales of Suspense 39 from, I don't think he really cared what he had or knew what he had. He wanted to sell that to get a second printing of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. That's what he really wanted. He was happy. I was happy. But those opportunities don't show up very often.
No.
It's funny. He's trading one of Newbie's Grail books to get one of my Grail books.
Yeah.
I hope that my Giant Size X-Men and my Hulk 181 one day I can turn it into a Tales of Suspense. That's we'll see.
Again, you were tempted on buying a $2,000 book. Don't just hang. It could take you up to a year. But once you finally do it, you finally do it. And again, those prices are not coming down.
No.
Wait till it gets to this spike in price is a major spike. It's not going to be deflated anytime soon, but it will plateau at some point. Yeah. When it plateaus, then you should make your move when you're ready, if and when you're ready.
Yeah. Well, Dan,
I
that's
want to
sorry.
start one more book before I get for a spec, because I was thinking about this one. This is one that's not on anyone's radar, and this is Doctor Strange 174. And this is the first appearance of a character called Satanish. Now, we still suspect that Mephisto will show up.
Yeah.
And if Mephisto shows up, the Silver Surfer 3 is probably out of everyone's price range, but his associates, his minions, people, or beings that he worked with may pop up at some point. So those are the issues you want to look for. You can get it for really cheap, and they're even high grade. So again, the more you put into this, the more homework you do, the more you're going to get out of this whole thing. I just have the luxury of living long enough to see a bunch of things, so I don't have to do my homework. I lived it already. I know what these characters are and who they worked with. So for you that are much younger than I am, if you're just getting started with this, you have a lot of reading to do.
Yeah.
But a little bit of research will go a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think Doctor Strange stuff is very undervalued. Again, even though we know that the movie's coming and certain characters might be in it and the possibility in the realms, it's crazy that a lot of people aren't picking up on it, right? So it's going to be interesting to see where some of these books are. I know everybody's saying, hey, mutants are going to show up with Doctor Strange and things like that. So, yeah, it's going to be.
But then again, how much is your budget? I mean, you profile the new comics every Sunday. How much do you want to budget for new comics? How much do you want to budget for modern ones? And then Bronze Age, Silver Age. And there's other areas I've gotten into too, like teen comics from the late 40s from Marvel. Those are kind of interesting to me. I didn't expect to go into that direction, but I did.
Yeah.
But again, you have to, once you establish your budget, then you have to have a plan and then just stick with it. Don't deviate too much.
Yeah.
Hey Dan, I just have a question. Given your years of experience collecting, okay, because like in the modern times, we know that Miles Morales right now is the hottest thing. But when he was introduced, he was almost kind of ridiculed for when he was, just the fact that we already have a Spider-Man, so he wasn't really accepted at first. Do you remember a character, I guess maybe in the Silver or Bronze, that would have been introduced that I guess borderline absurdity to the point that people didn't think that it would pan out, and now he's pretty much like a household name that kind of sticks out to you?
Well, one character that I it's a personal favorite of mine. It was a Roy Thomas story. His name was the Cobalt Man. In fact, I posted his first appearance on my Instagram page. It was a cross between Reed Richards and Iron Man at first in X-Men 31, and then Roy Thomas reintroduced him in the Hulk series 173, 174. He was bigger. He became a cross between Reed Richards, Iron Man, and the Hulk because he was Cobalt power. He bulked up, and he had this almost Hulkbuster type suit long before the Hulkbuster armor ever showed up on the scene. He wasn't ridiculed. It was a story that, how Marvel always has names that start with the same letter, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, blah. This was Ralph Roberts. So, Thomas wanted this character to go somewhere. He never did. I loved the character. I thought there was more to it. He was more complex. But there's a number of characters that are like that. He's my personal favorite. I got really high grades from him for really cheap because nobody cares about the character. I do. But there's a lot of characters like that. And again, it just goes to the incredible wealth that Disney bought when they bought Marvel. They've got thousands of stories to choose from. All they have to do is pick up a comic and make a movie out of it. It's pretty amazing.
So just before we wrap up here, Dan, do you have any books that you want to share that maybe people should be on the lookout for?
That was one of them. The Doctor Strange issues. I would also say the Strange Tales issues have been underrated for the longest time. Those were all Stan Lee stories. And now you can start looking at the Shang-Chi issues too. By the way, I think it is pronounced Shang-Chi because we're both Mortal Kombat fans. Shang Tsung has the same spelling.
Yeah, somebody had messaged me, and I won't name any names, but somebody had said...
I saw that comment. It was in the comments.
Yeah, and then I got messaged on Instagram by somebody, and they were like, hey, I kind of take offense. You're saying the name wrong. And I was
again, I'm not a word.
Man, I've been called the wrong name my whole life. So, I don't think.
But as an aside, Shang-Chi and all that was the 70s, and there was a huge Bruce Lee craze. That's how that got started. Yeah. And then with Nick Fury and the Strange Tales issues written by Stan Lee, that was back with James Bond, 007, when all that, Sean Connery, that was very popular in the 60s. Yeah. So they created this spy-ish character with great strength and great courage in the form of Nick Fury. And it was just, these are great reads. You can still get those for pretty cheap. I would get your hands on some of those because they're still available. They're still out there. What else? This one, if you can find them. Defenders 10. Gorgeous cover. Thor versus Hulk. Yeah. Still reasonably priced if you can get them raw. You know what I can do? That's a big question. I can probably just put something on your Instagram and you can post them at will, or I'll post them on my Instagram and you can take.
I could do you one better. I'll do you one better. Why don't you come back on our show? Because I'd love to have you back on, man. The chat's been going nuts. I know I've been writing some stuff down, but yeah, I'd love for you to come back. And if you want to share some of the spec or some books to look out for, man, we'd love to have you back on.
I'd be delighted. I'd be delighted to come back on. Yeah. Before we end it, I want to say that I've been very blessed regarding my collection and being able to get what I have here. And again, I'm not a sponsor to your show. I support/sponsor. I'm not a company. I'm not selling anything. I've sort of adopted your show. I think you guys have a great show, great lineup, great chemistry with the three of you. Same with Chris from Journos. He's just a great guy, and I love his content. I'm a religious watcher to his show. They're very informative. Yeah. And same with Jeff from Comic Book Canon. In fact, that's how I found you guys. Weren't you a guest on his show?
I was a guest. Hyper, were you a guest? I can't remember.
No, we were guests on Journo show, not Comic Book.
On a Journo. Yeah, but I did Canon. I did the Canon show, I think, by myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those guys recommended you. They said that, hey, you guys have a great show. Check it out, which I did. And I thought, wow, these guys are very informative, because I wish there were shows like this when I was collecting, so I would make the mistakes that I had made. And so, again, I want to give back to the community. And I told you that I'm going to give you guys this for your 2K. This is the 8.0. Oh, this is another spec, by the way.
Yes.
This is another pair of characters. This is Cloak and Dagger. They will show up in the Spider-Man movies, because at some point they're just that good. This is the 8.0. But you know what? I'm making a decision right here and right now. I'm going to upgrade you. So I'm not going to give you this 8.0 for your 2K. No, I'm going to give you this 9.4. This is going to be your 2K giveaway right here. So this will be for anyone for your show that you select, and however you want to do it, it's fine. It's your show. But, I'll keep the 8.0 for myself. It's really pretty, but I wanted to give you a better issue. Now,
Chris, I'm quitting your team. I'm quitting your team so I can be in the chat. I'm quitting Newbie's team so I can be in the chat for that giveaway.
I'm fired.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. So wait. Newbie's doing a solo show from this day forward, right?
That's right.
I guess so.
Until after the giveaway, and he can rehire us.
That's okay. I see how it works. So anyway, this is for you guys. Now, this was supposed to be for Chris from Journos. Chris, I know you're watching. I'm going to upgrade you too. You're not going to get this one here for your next giveaway, because I think you need something worthy for your 10K. Now, he's got such a great show.
Yeah,
he's going to make 10,000. He's a very smart man. Yeah, and I love his content. So you get a 9.6 signed by Ed Hannigan, and this will be your giveaway. It's worthy of a 10K. It's a great show. Check out Chris from Journos. Very informative show. Very pleasant individual. And lastly, because I support other shows, Jeff from Comic Book Canon.
Yeah,
I love Fridays. Chris has his open mic. He'll just talk about whatever, and he's very passionate when he talks about anything. And then it goes to the Comic Book Canon at 6. So for his 1,000 giveaway, we're kind of playing with the name of it. We're calling it the sub. For his 10,000 sub, you get this one here. This is Iron Man 120.
Wow.
Iron Man versus Submariner.
Yep.
You also get this one here, Iron Man 25, another Iron Man versus Submariner 9.0. And finally, you get this one here, Tales to Astonish 82, a classic cover, Iron Man Submariner. So this will be for the 1,000 giveaway for the Comic Book Canon show. Check these guys out. These guys are just dynamite.
I agree with Swaggle House. You're kind of like Oprah.
I was going to say.
Yeah, right?
I love Mickey from Swaggle House. I love you, man. I don't know about the Oprah comparison. I have to ponder that one. I probably shouldn't say anything. But by the way, this is also for you dealers out there putting together, because of the price of these things. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, I like comics, but I don't have a lot of money to spend. Well, this didn't cost all that much money to put together a little package deal. Getting a starter set. That's one of the things I would start doing. And, talking to your customer, you would know your customers, the routine. If they like Iron Man, this is a great beginning, like Submariner, Silver Age, whatever. You think out of the box. We're all going to have to as these prices move forward. Yep. So I think this is a great idea and a great suggestion for your vendors.
So there you guys have it. If you guys don't follow Journal, if you guys don't follow Comic Book Canon, I mean, those are some crazy books. Dan, I mean, I didn't even know you were doing that. So thank you. So for my 2K, Dan is putting up a 9.4 slab first appearance Cloak and Dagger. But again, go check out Journal. I mean, he's been on the show. I've been on his show. Go check out Jeff.
Could be yours.
Man, unreal, man.
It's pretty. I'm surprised they only rated it 9.4. I'm looking at this. I can't find the flaws in it.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's
well,
really
hey, thanks, man. That's a big thing. We're getting close on this end here. I think we're just a few away. So hopefully we get to it before May 25th. Dan, I want to take this time to thank you once again. I know this was your first appearance on a YouTube channel, so I'm kind of humbled that you chose this one, man. Like I said, welcome to anytime. We need to work on getting you back on. I enjoyed the conversation. I've had a pen and paper pad here as you've been talking and things like that. So definitely come back and join us once again.
My absolute pleasure. And one last thing, Hyper, you're on this Friday to defend your title?
Next Friday.
Next Friday. Okay, next Friday. Yeah. That's another great show. Tom Sanders is just hilarious. It's a fun show. I'd love to go on that show. I love it. I'd love it. The only guy I worry about is the guy who has all that Golden Age stuff, the doctor or whatever his name is. He's got good taste, and he's got some dynamite issues. I'd have a tough time keeping up with him.
Like I said, I won. I beat him, and I was surprised.
Yeah, you did. But you had to pull the big guns to do it, though.
Yeah, he pulled out some big guns.
We had this discussion before. Like, if you're gonna go, definitely go for the big boy books. Because please leave me out of this. Let me deal with the dollar bin and the variants, and then your collection. I think you're better off suiting for the heavyweight title.
Well, we'll see. It depends if I ever get on or not, but I doubt it. So,
well, before we go, Hype, Face, I'll give you guys the floor. Hype, what's coming on your channel for people that may not have caught us on Sunday? What do you got coming up?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks, Dan, for coming on. I mean, you've always been a supporter in the chat, so it's nice to have a face to go with that name. So, yeah, appreciate you coming on. And obviously, I wasn't able to take down notes because I was actually in the show. This might be one of those things I have to rewind and kind of catch some of that other info. But, yeah, so in terms of what I have coming down, actually, it's a few things. Tomorrow, I'm actually supposed to be on Travel and Root Beer's channel. He hit me up, and we're going to be doing a spoiler Mortal Kombat movie review and we're just two dudes that just love the game and love the movie. So don't expect like some Siskel and Ebert kind of Oscar review. It's more just us like talking about the movie as just two guys that just love the franchise. So that will be tomorrow at 7:30, I believe, Eastern. I'll try to post the info on my channel. Saturday, I'll be on No Good Comics channel to talk about my comic book origin story. So that will be at Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, Justin, great dude in the community, and I've loved his interviews that he's done in the past. So I was happy to jump on his show. And then apart from that, I'll be doing newbie show on Sunday, and me, Face, and Keys are supposed to be doing our debut, I guess, spin-off show this coming Monday, I believe.
This guy keeps saying that. Not sure.
No. But, I mean, it's been in the works. That's why. And then lastly, as Dan mentioned, in 2 weeks, I'll be defending my TV YouTube channel on Tony Sanders' wrestling show. It'll be my third defense, and it's a triple threat match. So I'll be facing off against Boston Chris and Chris Barrett. So it'll be my first time doing a triple threat. So that's what's coming down the pipe.
Big stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Face, what do you got coming up, brother?
I'm actually pretty simple. I only got one thing going on, and that's the show that we got coming on May 3rd, our premiere episode. I guess I can go ahead and put a little more information out there about it. We're just doing like basically it's going to be like a weekly news recap show where we're trying to bring you the most important information of the week in about an hour and a half. So
Dope. And you guys already know where you guys can find me Sundays and Tuesdays, 9:30 p.m. right here. And I occasionally drop some videos from time to time. However, I haven't been able to do any off live show stuff in a while, just due to working basically 110-hour work weeks. So yeah, but I'll be back into doing some videos shortly. And yeah, that's pretty much our show. Guys, I do want to thank everybody who came, supported, super chatted, all that stuff. Thank you so much. Again, I want to thank Dan for hopping on. A lot of knowledge given, man. So thank you.
And thank you, gentlemen. And thank you to the chat. Always great people. It's a pleasure to be with all of you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. You know the deal. Keep searching for them books because they're out there.
peace.